My name is Dominick Philippe-Auguste, and my oral history topic is the Jazz Age. My interviewee for this evening is Annette Philippe-Auguste, who will be answering my questions on the Jazz Age as I ask. What is the Jazz Age?
Well, the Jazz Age refers to a period of time from the end of World War I through the beginning of the Great Depression. It gets its name from jazz music, which was popular in that era. Some of the biggest inventions during the time were the telephone, automobile, and airplane. A man by the name of Arthur F. Scott Fitzgerald coined the phrase the Jazz Age. He did this in 1922 to describe the flamboyant social scene that emerged after World War I. During this time period, people were starting to show more expression through music, clothing, and art. The women's clothing became more shorter and they were more promiscuous. The hairstyles during this time period was the bob. The men wore colorful suits with wide-leg pants, pocket watches, and wide-brim hats. The dance was more faster and fun. The Charleston was the popular dance at this time. People were happy to have good music to dance to. Another name given to this time period was the Roaring '20s.
Jazz is a unique form of music that has been around for hundreds of years. It has evolved through a variety of styles, but each of them made use of a total care group of instruments like trombone, saxophone, piano, tuba, drum, clarinet, guitar, and piano, and also an instrument called the vibraphone. Jazz is a unique style of music that has been around for many, many years and has progressed as time has gone on and on and on. What were the roots of jazz?
The roots of jazz extended back over several centuries. It represented many different cultures' influences, both musical and non-musical, religious and secular, African and European. The true fact is that if there had not been slavery, there would not have been jazz. In 1619, the British imported the first black people to their colonies in Virginia. When African slaves were brought to they were not allowed to bring musical instruments, but they did bring their own musical styles and ways of performing it. African Americans modified European church hymns, folk songs, and dance music to fit their own taste and tradition, and this was passed down from generation to
The Golden Age of Jazz is a book published by William Gottlieb of classic jazz photography from the 1930s and 40s, which features such great artists as Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong, Cab Calloway, and Frank Sinatra, just to be named after famous William Basics, Charlie Christian, Miles Davis, Ella Fitzgerald, Benny Goodman, Herbie Hancock, and Scott Joplin. Is jazz related or different from the types of styles of blues, soul, and or swing?
Yes, I would say that they are all one and the same, with a mixture of blue notes, improvisation, polyrhythms, syncopation, and swing notes, all with a rhythmic beat and exciting tones to dance to.
Jazz in the 1920s had two different aspects to it. It had an African American aspect, well as a Caucasian American aspect. Jazz was part of the reason why the 20s were called the Roaring '20s. Jazz is cultural structure of music, which means that it was owned by basically all cultures. Jazz is a likely and improvisational style of music which made social events become more enjoyable and weren't tiresome. What was the true decade of jazz?
Well, the true decade of jazz was between 1920 through to the 1930s.
During the Jazz Age, civil rights for African Americans were still in progress, which also means that the African Americans were still going through segregation, which means they were separated from the Caucasian males and females. African Americans were treated as equal as Caucasian males and females, so their music abilities were lessened because of the economic problems, as also where they're going through the Great Depression. What made jazz become so famous?
Well, before the 1920s, the closest thing to jazz was a music called ragtime. Ragtime was a form of dancing. Other than this, most music was either classical or war songs.
What ended the Jazz Age?
The Jazz Age ended in the 30s with the beginning of the Great Depression. It was a time when people were really down on their luck and they were having hard times financially, emotionally, and they weren't much in the mood for music, let alone anything else. So jazz kind of phased out to make way for something new.
Jazz has been all around us from the start, even back from dating back to almost the 1800s. It has evolved ever since then, and is still evolving now, like to the basic hip hop we hear today. If it wasn't for jazz, then we probably wouldn't be having any of this music at all. So I think we should thank jazz for what it has done for us in society. And by thanking jazz, we know that we appreciated what it's done, and we wouldn't be having the music we have today. So thank you, jazz. Thank you.